The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heartthrob in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too evil and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you May 23rd, 2024. Another soul podcast, like not even 48 hours. Well, 40 hours later. Didn't plan on doing one so soon. I tend like to space out the solo episodes like at least 4 or 5 days or a week. But got a lot to talk about. A lot going on. A lot going on here. In my world, a lot going on in the sports world, a lot going on in the political world, a lot going on in this culture in general. There's a lot going on. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the conversation. You see today's title, The End of an Era, ? It looks like a question mark at this point. If you had to believe the news is true, and this is what triggered the idea of doing this episode. This is going to be a smaller episode, like quick emergency podcast, reacting to the end of the possible end of the NBA on TNT, or most notably the Inside the NBA team, which we've spoken about a little bit on the show in the previous episodes in the last week or so, about the possibility of the NBA on TNT coming to its end after, I think they've been around for 35 years total. Ernie Johnson hosted that show, the Inside NBA, as a solo guy for a long time, and he was great at that. For crying out loud, I remember those days. And then Kenny Smith came on the scene once he retired, and then years after that, Charles Barkley came on after he retired, and those three guys were the face, and to this day, the greatest, studio sports team in the history of all sports, regardless of sport. And they bring on Shaq in 2011, 2012. And I was skeptical about that one, because I thought bring another guy in would mess with the dynamic of that team, and he did not do that. Shaq actually only added to it. But we are looking like we've seen the end of this. From the Sports Business Journal from yesterday, it reports that today that the NBA will formalize new deals with ESPN, NBC, and Amazon this week. The Sports Business Journal also says that NBC will air Basketball Night in America on Sunday nights after the NFL season. This means next season will be the last for TNT and Inside the NBA. Again, I've been very not critical, but I've been very bold about my position on this whole situation. What I want personally. Now, look, it's not my money and this and that. I have some good sources on what's going on here in the situation, and all this is tracking well. NBA rights are up in the air, obviously, for certain networks. We say ESPN is going to have theirs taken care of very soon. NBC, as we hear, is coming on. But here's a key thing also I want to talk about. Amazon could be is in play to also get NBA rights. And while I am depressed that we're going to lose the NBA on TNT, because I think NBA on TNT, look, there's a lot of nostalgia behind the idea that, but NBA back on NBC means we got the theme music back of, John Tesh's famous song. And I love that song, you're wrong. But I've said too on record that that song is not enough for me to want to do away with the coverage that NBA and TNT brings. Because quite frankly, NBA and TNT, in comparison to NBA and NBC way back when, I would say the coverage is on par. I wouldn't say it was better. I mean, obviously, outside of theme music, I'd be honest, I love the NBA and TNT theme music also too as well. In fact, I've actually loved all the theme music they've done through the years. So that's not even so much a sticking point for me at this point. Like, yeah, cool, you get the theme music, but that's gonna wear after a couple weeks. You know, losing Ernie Johnson, losing Charles Barkley, losing Kenny Smith and Shaq, that team, that's a problem. That's you can't. And the thing is, people say, well, they'll get another team in there. You can't replicate that. Number one, networks won't allow it because the kind of leash that Warner or Turner gives, those four guys, no one else is doing that because they're not going to allow that for that matter. But I mentioned Amazon because of this. Amazon is a player here. And I think if Amazon gets rights, I think there's a good chance that Amazon may make a play for these four guys to come on their platform and maybe have depending on how much games they get a week and how that works out. But Amazon, I can see making a play for the Inside NBA guys. I can see a scenario where in 2 years, after next year, where it's the last season, lame duck year for NBA and NBC, NBA on TNT, rather, Inside the NBA, that Amazon makes a play for Ernie Johnson and the boys to do that show, whether or not it's on this name or another name, on their platform. And I think that'd be a smart investment. The word is that Ernie Johnson does not want to leave Turner. He's dedicated to staying with that company. He's been there for almost 40 years. He's a loyal employee there. He wants to stay in Atlanta. Of course, Turner and Warner, Warner Brothers, obviously he has a home there, and it works out great. So if they can find a way to replicate that show where Ernie Johnson doesn't shake things up, that's a win. That's a win. And I'll be honest with you, I think someone will make an offer to somehow bring those four guys together again, whether it's on NBC, whether it's on I don't see ESPN doing it at this point, but who knows? I wouldn't want ESPN personally because I don't think ESPN will actually give them the space to be themselves. ESPN's way too say strict, but they're way too overbearing on their rules as is that I don't see Charles Barkley flourishing there. I couldn't see Charles Barkley being to who he is because ESPN wanted to over sanitize everything there. So that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work at all. But Amazon, keep on Amazon because Amazon, they already said Amazon's going to get new deals this week. This is a fluid situation now. These deals will formalize this week. There's a lot of sources on this now too also. But I do think that, and my prediction is that Amazon will make a play for all four guys. I know there's a situation where people say, well, you can put Charles Barkley and a couple of those guys, maybe and Kenny together on NBC. And while that may work, here's what I will say about that. You cannot, Ernie Johnson is the glue of that whole thing. That thing does not work like Ernie Johnson. Ernie Johnson is the one that reels those guys back in. You can't replace him. So if you're going to do this, if a network is going to take these guys and make a Charles Barkley, for example, or a Kenny or Shaq, whatever, and want to do the show over again, they can't. In my opinion, it does not work without Ernie Johnson. So you need Ernie Johnson to be there to make this whole thing work. But yeah, this is the end of an era. I mean, we are sad times because, like I said, I love the NBA on TNT. I've always been a fan, theme music and all, everything. The coverage is great. I'm watching the game last night. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, to me, it's just heaven. And for a guy who was raised on watching studio shows for a long time and who's kind of doesn't watch pre-game shows anymore like he used to, or post-game shows in the NFL like he used to, NBA and TNT, Inside the NBA is the only show I dedicate watching every time they're on TV. And if I don't watch them live on TV, I make sure I go on YouTube and follow at least watching the clips of the shows they do the day after, because they are must-watch television. NBA and Inside the NBA is appointment television for me, and I don't want to lose that. I do not want to lose that. And if Amazon can somehow find a way to get them on the platform and not just get them on the platform, but get all four guys, Ernie, Chuck, Shaq, and Kenny on the show, that'll be a massive win, and that will do a lot for Amazon going forward. So that's where we're at now. So we are approaching the inevitable end of NBA on TNT, which is very sad, but at the same time, we'll see what happens there. Anyway, speaking of the NBA, we are already one game into each series of the conference finals. Not much to talk about, really, to be honest with you. The East Finals game 2 is tonight, Pacers and Celtics. Pacers give away a game. If there was any chance for Indiana to really have a chance to say, oh, maybe we can win the series, they might have lost it in game 1. I don't see Boston playing that bad. Well, I can't say Boston playing that bad, but I don't know if Indiana can replicate that again. I don't think Indiana can replicate that performance again. I was saying before the series started that obviously you want to take one in Boston. Important. We know that already. It's a very important situation. You got to win one in Boston. But for you to give the game away, unforced errors late in the game. It's very sad. It's very sad. Honestly, I'm rooting for the Pacers obviously win the series. Boston took care of business. Jason Tatum had a great overtime. I still have a lot of questions on Jason Tatum's and whether he's a top 5 guy in the league. I'm still on that same fence I was last year and the year before that. But I think Boston should be able to win this. I honestly think they'll blow out Indiana game 2. I think after what happened in game 1, I can't see Indiana replicating what happened in game 1, honestly. So I'm gonna go Boston in game 2 as well. I think, of course, you had the West Conference Finals that started out last night. Dallas wins last game 1. Phenomenal game for the record. Phenomenal game. I thought Minnesota was doing away with it early in the game. Then Dallas came back and made the game. You saw Kyrie Irving back to who he was, back to being the dominant player he is when he's locked in. Same with Luka. Oh my God, Luka Doncic was making some big shots late in that game. Minnesota just looked like they were just unfocused late. They just didn't look like the same team they were in that series against Denver. Obviously, the series not over yet, but Dallas did their job. They got the one win they got the one game they needed out of Minnesota, and they got that up the shoot. Now let's see if they can win a second one. Could they pull off what Minnesota did against Denver in the last round? Really curious about that. But I'm looking forward to game 2. I expect Minnesota to come bounce back. Anthony Edwards bounce back in that game. I will say though, and despite the loss, and you guys know I'm not a big. I've never been a big Karl-Anthony Towns fan, Cat, as they call him in the NBA. But I gotta say, after last night, I think I'm starting to slowly warm up on him. Slowly. And very slow, because I'm not a fan. But he played decent last night, and he made some plays, and put it this way, they didn't lose the games to him. Let's put it that way. But I do think I'm starting to finally warm up the Cat after all these years. I'll say that. But yeah, big win for Dallas last night. Must win for game 2 for Minnesota. Look, I think after what I saw last night, I think I can see a scenario where Dallas is really playing in the finals. Like because I was Minnesota in 5, probably 6 in the series. Now after what I saw last night with Luka and Kyrie, what they're doing, the Dallas defense is playing phenomenal. An argument been probably the or one of the best defenses in basketball in the last 6 weeks of the year, going to the playoffs. Man, I can see Dallas definitely winning a championship. I can see it. So there's that. All right, let's get to another NBA topic here. Yesterday, they officially released their all NBA teams announcements yesterday. Here's the list here. If you're on YouTube, of course, you can see on the screen here. You have, of course, the first team all NBA, almost one of mine, SGA and Nikola Jokic, both tied in total points. All got all first team votes, unanimous first team votes. Luka Doncic was second with 98, only one second place vote. Giannis, who had 88 first place votes, and Jason Tatum. The only difference between my list was obviously I had Jalen Brunson on the first team, but he was second team all NBA. He did get 37 first place votes. You got Anthony Edwards on the second team as well too. Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis to round out the second team, of course. And the third team, of course, you have LeBron James, Steph Curry, Domantas Sabonis, Tyrese Halliburton, and Devin Booker. I will say, definitely the same players as me. Couple of differences here. I'm looking at my list here real quick to see exactly where I stood on this. But yeah, this is no. I can't find the list here. Actually, not think about that. No, cannot find it. Nope, can't find it. Oh well. Like I said, I had Jalen Brunson my first team, Giannis my second team. Other than that, I believe my second team is very similar to what they have here. Maybe Kawhi was on my third team. I might have Steph Curry my third team as well. I have Sabonis my second team actually. So any difference there. But other than that, the 15 guys that are labeled here are pretty much 15 guys I had labeled on my list as well too. So it's really no massive difference really in terms of the overall 15 teams, 15 players rather on this list. So yeah, congrats to those guys for what they've done. Obviously, lots of talk about position lists and positions and all that, I'm okay with it. I have no problem with what transpired here. But yeah, oh no, they mostly got it right. I have no problem with the NBA team here for the most part. But I want to play a clip though from yesterday I saw, and it was Shaq. Speaking of NBA and all that inside NBA, Draymond Green was on Shaq's podcast, a big podcast with Shaq. I think earlier this week, and they were discussing about how the Warriors team, how the Golden State Warriors, team with Steph Curry at the peak, how they would fare against Shaq and Kobe's teams of the early 2000 title teams. And it's gotten to like a really heated debate about who will stop who and all this stuff. I want to play a clip. I want to play a clip of Shaq's. Sorry about that. I want to play a clip of the interview from the podcast from a few days ago. Here it is.
Get your Golden State Warriors. Any of my championship team, any of your championship team, who wins? And the bonus question: who guarding me? Please don't say Andrew. Okay.
I don't think any one player on our team could have guarded you. I do think there were defensive schemes that we could have thrown at you to affect you. One is not letting you get the ball. So we're going to guard you with a guy in front of you, the guy behind you.
They did that.
Yeah, I wasn't on the court, though.
All right, so what you going to do, stand behind me?
I'm standing in front. Ain't no ball getting to you.
What you mean the ball don't get to me?
I'm not 6 feet.
But you ain't 7 feet.
I got 7'3" wingspan.
And I got 9'4" wingspan.
Yeah, but you can't get the ball through me. Andrew Bogut's behind.
Stop
I'm in the front.
Stop it.
We're leaving somebody over there to shoot because you couldn't shoot.
But however, Bogut going to be in foul trouble. Now, who your backup center?
Me.
Draymond, stop.
Me.
Draymond.
Shaq, I don't think I could have guarded you. I'm not saying that. However, you would have had to bring your big out of that drop. Man, if you stay back there, I'm going to nail whoever guarding Steph. I'm going to nail whoever guarding Clay, and we're going to dot your eye every play.
Okay, but you know what's going to happen after that? I'm going to tell D-Fish, get up on him, let him drive, and I'm going to lay his little out.
Hey, and we got to fight.
All right, what you got to fight now?
And guess what? You getting thrown out the game and me getting thrown out the game. Who's that going to hurt worse?
That's a good point.
Your team. Then y'all lose.
So I guess we're not going to fight then. Who guarding Kobe?
Clay.
Uh-oh. All right, that's Shaq and Draymond Green from the big podcast of Shaq for a few days back. Great back and forth there. Here's what I'll say about that in terms of Lakers Warriors if they would have played peak of powers. Are we talking about the Warriors team with or without Kevin Durant? Because if you're talking about the team with Kevin Durant, I think that's a whole different conversation there. First off, there's no one in the Warriors that can stop Shaq. Nobody. None of the centers they had. Andrew Bogut, as he said, and he said Andrew fucking Bogut, but Andrew Bogut can stop Shaq. There's no one in that roster they've had throughout their entire dynasty that I believe can even slow down Shaq, let alone Draymond Green. I'm sorry, Draymond Green, you're a great defender and all that. You ain't stopping Shaq. Stop. But what I will say is that if there was a hypothetical Warriors-Lakers matchup that ever played out, without Kevin Durant, I think Lakers win that in about 6 or 7 games. Now, with Kevin Durant, though, that's a whole different conversation because Kevin Durant creates so many different matchup nightmares. I have said on record that I believe the Warriors with Kevin Durant can virtually beat any all-time great team in the NBA. The only question I would have is which rules are you playing under? Are you playing under the rules where you're allowing hand checking, or rules where you didn't allow hand checking, or whatever it be? That's the only thing, because Kevin Durant makes Steph Curry 10 times one day. You can't double Kevin Durant. You can't double number one, okay? Because you double him, you have Clay out there, peak Clay, and peak Steph out there open, okay? So that's a problem there. So if you're saying with Kevin Durant, I would buy that argument. Also, I brought up at the end of that clip also about Kobe Bryant. Who was going Kobe? And say Clay. Here's what I'll say about that. Klay Thompson. I know we're not big on Clay. We're softer on Clay today because he had a rough season this year, and obviously this is post knee injury and all that. Klay Thompson, his peak, was one of the best defenders in basketball. Part of his great shooting actually made his defense so underrated because we didn't talk about his defense because his shooting was so great. But Klay Thompson was a phenomenal on-ball defender in his peak. I'm not saying Klay Thompson is going to stop Kobe. He ain't stopping Kobe. No one's stopping Kobe. but he's gonna make Kobe work. I think the advantage the Warriors would have in a series against again hypothetical series against the Lakers is that outside of the two guys of Kobe and Shaq, and I'm not saying the supporting cast wasn't good, but I would take the Warriors supporting cast over the Lakers supporting cast. Like after you get past Kobe and Shaq, the rest of the roster, if I take top two guys each roster, Steph, Durant, and then Kobe and Shaq, each one. After that, the rest of the roster you're taking. I'm taking the Warriors roster because you still have Klay Thompson, still have Draymond Green. Who do you got in LA? You got Devin George, who's a solid player, but nowhere close as good as Klay Thompson or Draymond Green. Derek Fisher was good. He's not better than Klay Thompson. Like, come on now. Like, we're not being serious here. So if we're talking about Kevin Durant with the Warriors versus the Lakers, I think the Warriors win that in 6 games, honestly. You can't say, oh, yeah, just impossible. Well, wasn't it impossible when the Detroit Pistons beat them in 5 in the finals? And yeah, we can say, oh, the things happened in Colorado and all the distractions. That doesn't matter. You're saying, give me X team with players versus X team with X players. That's what we're doing here. So with Kevin Durant, they beat the Lakers in 6 games, in my opinion. Because while Shaq would dominate the middle, their shooting with Kevin Durant will equalize anything Shaq was doing in the middle. And that's why I would take the Warriors in 6 over the Lakers with Kevin Durant. Now, if it's without Kevin Durant, if it's the Warriors, 15 Warriors without Kevin Durant, and the 22 Warriors without Kevin Durant, I'll take Lakers in 6 games. So there's that. I want to touch on one thing, though, before we get to some political talk here on the podcast. On the last show I did here 2 days ago, we discussed Diddy in a situation, the video that came out last week where they showed a video of him on camera, allegedly, well, it's not alleged anymore because he confirmed it, that was him, hitting Cassidy, basically, slapping her and dragging her around in the hotel room, and the video is proof of that. And my commentary on that was of that his apology was phony, mainly because of the fact that he didn't apologize to her. He didn't say her name. Well, I have to clear something here real quick, and look, I'm not perfect. I was a bit emotional in that segment on the last episode, and I get it. But I'm gonna be, look, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't double down on me being wrong. If I'm wrong, and if there's new information that changes my perspective or whatever, I'm gonna pivot. I'm a man enough to do that. I will always do that. By law, I guess, or whatever the lawsuit is, whatever, he's not allowed to say her name. Okay? He's not allowed to say her name. So, because of that, that's so my reaction to that, not knowing information that that Diddy's not allowed to say Cassie's name, and I'm assuming that's the agreement they have based on the settlement they have. I guess I'm assuming, but multiple people told me, a couple of friends texted me after the show that heard the podcast, said, "Listen, he can't say her name." I did not know that. I was not aware of that, and I apologize for not saying I put out bad information. I just didn't know the information at all, and I want to be more transparent with you guys about that. So, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying now. So I'm retracting a little bit what I said a bit about Diddy. I still think it's a piece of shit. That doesn't change. I still actually don't even believe him. If he's truly sorry, I still have that commentary. But the part about his name, about her name, or not saying her name, he's not allowed to say her name. That's the agreement I think they made in the lawsuut or in the settlement, whatever it be. So there's that. So I'm look, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I admit I'm wrong. I'm not big enough to not admit it. So there you go. Okay. What else got here on the docket? Nikki Haley, politics, a little politics talk. Nikki Haley has kissed a ring. And Nikki Haley endorsed Donald Trump yesterday. Why is that surprising? People out there say, "Oh my God, didn't I tell y'all literally in January during the primaries that she's going to do this? That everybody will fall in line. Everybody, with the exception of Chris Christie, is going to fall in line with Donald Trump." I don't know what event it was, but Nikki Haley came out and endorsed Donald Trump. Okay, and I'm not surprised. Everybody's surprised, and you see all these like never Trumpers on social media talking about how shocked they are and disappointed. Like, and I'm sitting there like, eating popcorn like, yeah, stop. You know they're gonna kiss the ring. You know that when it comes down to the meat and bones, this whole thing, they're gonna kiss the ring to Donald Trump. Like, stop it. Like, what are we doing here? Stop getting mad about it. Stop getting fake mad about it. You're not surprised. Like, come on. They're doing this to protect their own careers because Donald Trump, as I said, and I continue saying for the last, God knows, like 5 years now. Even look, it's been 4 years, 3 years since January 6th. They didn't pivot there. If they weren't pivoting over January 6th, why the hell do you think they'll pivot now at this point? Because it's financially feasible for them to back Donald Trump instead of having the balls to say stick to the convictions. And Nikki Haley went heavy on him in the primaries, but it didn't matter. It did not matter because at the end of the day, just like Ron DeSantis did, just like Tim Scott did, and everybody else, not named Chris Christie, kissed the ring. That's it. So to be surprised by this is ludicrous, in my opinion. This is ludicrous. You know, we're 6 months away from the election. You know, people say the most consequential election of our lifetime. Probably. I mean, I heard that in 2020, in 2016, in 2012. So, I mean, it's not like it has been said before. But, you know, that gets old. Is democracy on the line here? Who knows? Maybe it is. Probably it is. Sure. Okay. Cool. But the problem is we've heard this so many times in the years that threat keeps saying that. Even if you're pro or anti-Trump, it becomes numbing because it's nothing new. Because I heard the same thing when Mitt Romney ran for president. When Mitt Romney was running against Obama during Obama's re-election in 2012, I heard the same rhetoric from lots of liberals and Democrats. Oh, this is the consequential election and democracy's on the line. I heard from George Bush twice. Folks, I've been voting for 24 years. I've heard this before. I'm not saying that it's not true this time around, but again, when you keep repeating the same old rhetoric over and over and over again, at some point it's like, okay, who you fooling now? This is all bullshit. Stop. My thing is this, though. I can't tell you who to vote for. You know, you can sit here and you can criticize folks that love Joe Biden, folks that love Donald Trump, RFK Jr., whatever. It's their right, man. It's their God-given right to do what they want to do at this point. I can't tell folks who to vote for. When people come to me and ask me who should I vote for, I give my personal. I tell them, listen, I'm not going to tell you to vote for. I give my personal opinion about where this election lands. And I always ask them this: what are the things you care about? Because I see what makes me different from other people that talk about politics and other things of that nature is that when I talk about politics with people I know, I always ask them policy questions. Where are you on policy? Where do you stand on women's rights? Where do you stand on national security? Where do you stand on the economy? Where do you stand on healthcare? Like for me, healthcare is front of mind. My number one issue on top of the card. Some people have abortion, and that's fine. That's their right. Healthcare has been for the last 15, 20 years my number one concern when it came to voting for whoever I vote for, whether it's president or senator or representatives or local elections here. Healthcare has always been the number one priority for me because healthcare affects everything. Okay, but that's just me. That's how I feel. That's how I feel as Earnest Christian, the man going to the voting booth. And part of the reason why I voted Democrat for the last 4 or 5 cycles is because they are closer to where I am on healthcare than Republicans are. Now, if Republicans were to get their shit together and get on the ball with healthcare and get a little bit more moderate to progressive on healthcare, they may have my vote at some point. So for me, it's simple when it comes to the political conversations. But demonizing folks, and I got to tell you, I know Bill Maher gets a lot of shit for this, quite frankly, because, you know, Bill Maher is out of touch. And look, I love his show, but I also think Bill Maher's an asshole. I've been saying for years that Bill Maher is an elitist asshole. He doesn't have any kids, no family, not married, the whole nine. So he looks at life from his own prism, but applies everybody else's issues through his prism, which I don't think is right. Everybody's different. But one thing I will say, Bill Maher has always gotten right, and he's been promoting his book as of late. Recently, he went on The View a couple of days ago. He went on a couple of other shows and whatnot. Is that You can hate Donald Trump all you want. And this is the message of Democrats here. You can hate Donald Trump all you want. And that's fine. That's on you. That's your bag. But you can't hate all supporters. Hate to break it to you. And he's correct on that. And you can get mad at me all you want. You may not agree with a lot of my takes about sports and about politics, but you know what I'm saying, I believe. Okay, what I'm saying, I believe. I'm not like Clay Travis, these other grifters out there who sit there and say these things, don't really believe what they're saying, but it's a money grab. No. What I say in this podcast, I believe. You cannot hate all Donald Trump supporters. Yeah, there are some I can't stand. Hell, there's some liberals I can't stand. You know, because again, I'm also a individualistic person. I look at people for who they are as people, not for the political prison they live in. I mean, it's great to politics, dude. Some of my best friends are hardcore Trump supporters, but we also share beer all the time and have great times, and we have great conversations about other things. We disagree on politics. Same thing and for me, it's a little bit different because I'm more moderate. There's a lot of liberals I disagree with wholeheartedly also too as well on issues as well. But it's okay. It's okay to disagree. But judge folks for who they are as people, not through the prison politics. And that's where all this shit's got lost. Now, there's some dishonest people out there. You have this Amber Rose. Amber Rose is this like influencer or whatever, this model. I don't know. She's very popular in the community, of course. She recently endorsed Donald Trump on her, at least it looks like an endorsement on her IG, saying Trump 2024, and people came at her for that. And it's her right to do that. Now, I will say, based on some of the things I've heard her talk about, it is fascinating that she supports Donald Trump, but some of the things that she's for politically, Donald Trump works against that. But again, that's for her to figure out. And when you demonize people like that, all you're doing is cast her aside and make her right for the other side to take her. That's all I'm saying. You can hate the politicians you hate. The same with Joe Biden. People hate Joe Biden. You can hate the Joe Biden all you want, or liberals and libtards all you want, or liberal politicians all you want. You can't hate all the liberals though. You can't, because some things you enjoy, people are liberals. Some people you enjoy, some things you buy and things you may realize are made by the very people you claim to hate, and it applies on both sides. Cardi B showing this dissatisfaction, and granted, she's a celebrity. People say, "Oh, well, she's a celebrity. Who gives a shit what she says?" Well, she's still a person. You don't like what she says, and you don't like Cardi B and what she stands for, but she's still a person, she's still a voter. Just because because she's a celebrity doesn't mean she doesn't vote. She votes. She votes, and she cares about politics. It may not be as exquisite or as polished as you want it to be, but it's honest. She has a problem with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. She's not voting this year. I have opinions about that, but that's her right. I would prefer she votes, obviously. Usually God give you American right, your American privilege to do so. But at the same time, I'm not going to demonize her for it, for opinion. That's her opinion. She doesn't like Donald Trump or Joe Biden. She thinks Joe Biden's done nothing for this country in 3.5 years. Guess what? There's a lot of people who I know share the same opinion. And not just Republicans either. There's a lot of Democrats who feel that way too about Joe Biden. And you may not like it, but too fucking bad. That's just people's opinion and their reality. And instead of demonizing people about that, talk to them. Talk to them and see what exactly they're being lost at. Unfortunately, that's where political conversation is going these days. That no one wants to talk to each other anymore. Nobody wants to talk anymore, regardless if they're on the same side, opposite sides. And that's why we are where we are. And this is why I'm proud of this platform. This podcast is a free speech, independent thinking podcast where we allow guests on the show to talk, have conversations. We do it all the time. We've had people from different political persuasions on the show. We'll continue having that as long as it's not a racist, bigoted prick. As long as you're having productive conversations, on the show, excuse me, you always have a home here. And that's what I want this show to continue to be going forward. is an open space for people to feel comfortable, regardless of what their the political beliefs are or religious beliefs are, and to talk and to give perspective on things. I'm going to agree with you on your politics and religion, but we're here to have a conversation here, and that's why I'm very proud of this show. What it has become in the 13 years of doing this show. And I'm very thankful for that. I really am. Anyway, let's talk some music here. So yesterday we saw Apple Music finished their top 100 best albums of all time. Very interesting list here. I will say that as I slept on it last night, I got a little bit more annoyed at the list as I slept on it a little bit. Because my initial reaction was, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, the first thing that stuck to me was that it was a very diverse list, which I loved. A lot of genres. Now, a lot of people complain about that. There was enough R&B in there. I saw a thing about Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri had tweeted yesterday that he was unsurprised that there was not enough R&B albums on here, which I disagree with that because I thought there was quite a few R&B numbers here. Maybe not the ones he wanted on there, but some people say not enough hip hop on there, which I disagree with. I see a lot of hip hop on this list as well. So you know what? Let me give you my top. Here's the top 20. It's the top 20 albums on this list. I mean, you can go to the entire 100, but just go. You can Google. Obviously, you see the top 100 list. Very interesting list here. So number 20, they had Beach Boys' Pet Sounds album. 19, they had The Chronic by Dr. Dre. Number 18, 1989 by Taylor Swift. 17, What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. 16, Blue by Joni Mitchell. 15, 21 by Adele. 14, Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. 13, The Blueprint by Jay-Z. 12, OK Computer by Radiohead. 11, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Now, top 10. Which I don't necessarily hate, but there's definitely a lot of things I like. I'm thinking about what exactly what do you think about this? Number 10, Lemonade by Beyonce. 9, Nevermind by Nirvana. 8, Back in Black by Amy Winehouse. 7, Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. 6, Songs Heal Life by Stevie Wonder. 5, Blonde by Frank Ocean. 4, Purple Rain by Prince and the Revolution. 3, Abbey Road by the Beatles. 2, Thriller by Michael Jackson. And the number one album they had, according to the panel of artists and producers and all that, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. I'm not going to lie to you. First off, I'm a big MJ fan, so I'm like, okay, Thriller's number one, whatever. But I don't hate Lauryn Hill number one, honestly. First off, that album by Lauryn Hill, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, is in my top 10 all-time favorite albums anyway. One of these days I'm gonna do a podcast. I'm gonna do like my top 10 my most unskippable albums in music history. It's quite a few I have actually, but that's one of the few unskippable albums that I have on my list. I don't hate it. Now, a couple of things that stood out to me looking at this entire list because there's a lot, this 100. And again, you can Wikipedia it, you can put it, you can see on Google and all that. A couple of things that stood out to me looking at this list. Number one, only one Michael Jackson album. Only one. I don't sound like a homer here, and look, I know Thriller is many people look at Thriller as not only obviously it is the biggest album of all time, but also the greatest album of all time. I mean, that's up for discussion. I don't even, first of all, I don't, it's not even my favorite Michael Jackson album of all time. It's not even my top 3 or 4. But this is the only MJ album on the list of 100. Where's Off the Wall? Where's Bad? Bad is a top 5 seller all time. I think Bad's the 4th biggest album of all time in music history. Where's Bad? Off the Wall, many argue, competes with Thriller in terms of impact. Where's that album? So from a personal level, that's where I was at. Okay, where I didn't see that wasn't what bothered me. Initially seeing the list. Number 2, where's Queen? There's not one Queen album on that list. You mean tell me the Night of the Opera is not top 100 album all time? That's ridiculous. Night of the Opera is a phenomenal album, and the fact that they can somehow figure to put that album in there, it's a problem. Another thing stood out. That Madonna's album. Which one was it again? The 69. Let me check the list real quick. Madonna's album. We'll find it here. Where's it at? Find it. Like a Prayer at 77. Obviously, a good album. I'll talk about Madonna in a second, but not her best album. I would argue Ray of Light should be on this list. Ray of Light should be on this list. Just my opinion. And then the other thing here that stood out was and I know Beyonce fans are gonna come at me for saying this, but I don't care. I don't care. You know how I am. Way too many Beyonce albums on this list too. Also, they had two albums of Beyonce. They had Beyonce self-titled album on here. They had Lemonade, of course, on this list as well too. I think that's it. I'm sorry. I mean, Lemonade's a great album. You want to put top 100? Go right ahead. Top 10? That's a little much. But way too many Beyonce. None of her albums really stand out as great records historically. Great. She has good songs, but albums other than Lemonade, what other album she has that's stood out? B-Day was okay, but her first maybe her first album, Dangerous in Love, I think it was. I think her first album anyway, but didn't stand out. They don't stand out in the same way. So I had a problem with that. I also want to know what was the criteria they used to determine this. Now, I'm not as mad about this list as I would be with the other lists I've seen and I've covered on this podcast in the last couple of years. Well, like on Billboard or Rolling Stone rolls out on their own list of top singers or top whatever. And I'm always pissed off because there's always like an agenda behind it, and it's pretty fucking obvious. So, I mean, this is not terrible. I do like the fact that they were diverse. I saw Metallica in there, Metallica, Master of Puppets, number 69. I'm surprised that they didn't put the Black Album on there, other than Master of Puppets. But I would argue Master of Puppets is more impactful because if you're a metal fan, Master of Puppets has probably created more musicians in that genre than the Black Album. The Black Album is the bigger album, obviously. It's the one that made a mainstream and one of the biggest bands on the planet. But in terms of influence, I definitely agree. Master of Puppets is definitely and only that, I think that's of all Metallica albums, that's probably the most unskippable album of all their albums they have. Honestly, if you're being real, it really is the most unskippable album of all their albums for me, anyway. So I want to know the criteria was also too, because I mean, impact. If we're talking impact, Thriller should be number one. Let's be clear about that. If we're talking impact, Thriller should be number one. But the other criteria they took on there, I think maybe Lauryn Hill was more modern because she fused a lot of gospel, R&B, rock, soul. The album has still test time years later, 26 years old, and is still listened to by many people to this day. I mean, Lauryn Hill is still milking off that record. I mean, it's really her only rap album she's really done, really, think about it. But the list itself, I was not too mad about it because I've seen worse. That's why. Again, if you look at Billboard's lists they've done in recent years that we've covered in this podcast, if you look at lists that Rolling Stone did the last couple of years, trash. we did a WWE list recently on this podcast, top 50 superstars that Bleacher Report put out, and we did a 2-hour podcast with myself and my boys DJ and Rob a Genius, and we excoriated that list. So considering the list I have covered in this podcast through the years, this wasn't that bad. Look at some of these albums here, for example. Looking at the top 10, for example, I think Lauryn Hill, top 10, I'm okay with that. Purple Rain, I'm okay with that. Everyone okay with that. Thriller, obviously, I'm okay with that. Frank Ocean, Blonde, top 10, no. Song Key Life by Stevie Wonder, definitely a top 10 album. I'll tell you what, Nirvana, Nevermind is definitely arguably a top 10 album. I'll give you that. I will say, though, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys should be in the top 10. In my opinion. Should be top 10. Surprised that of all the Kanye albums that the my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was in the top 26, number 26 actually. Dark Side of the Moon in 28 was pretty low, actually, considering the impact of that album. I just think Last Word said Jack Little Pills too low at 31. Let me see. Nas Illmatic is 39 is fine, given the, you have Janet Jackson's Control. I argue that's the only time she's on the list. I would argue that Rhythm Nation is better than Control. I think if you're gonna put a Janet Jackson album in the top 100, it's a Rhythm Nation. But again, Control had a lot of hits too, also, to be fair. So, let me see. U2 Joshua Tree. That's a good. Definitely top 100 album. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't hate this list because I think also too when you look at it, there's diversity here. You have NWA, for example. Hip hop gets represented here well. Tupac, NWA, Jay-Z, Kanye, Beastie Boys, Drake is in here. Look, Drake's too high in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. I think the Bob Marley's Exodus is actually a little low at 46. Yeah, but all in all, the list itself is not that bad. It's not that bad. They acknowledge a lot of these bands and artists and stuff that I didn't think they would acknowledge. And that in itself, for me, is respect to the people who actually did this list. I'll tell you what, far better than the list I've seen. Like I'll say it again, I'm repeating this over and over again, but far better than the list I've seen from Rolling Stone and Billboard and all that stuff. So yeah, not a bad list, all considering, I will say. So anyway, I mentioned a little while ago about Madonna. Actually, I'm going through a little bit of Madonna kick as of late. People are surprised they hear that. Like, you're a Madonna fan? I go, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Madonna. I've owned a lot of her albums for years. So we go back to my early preteens. I remember my first Madonna album I actually bought my own money was Bedtime Stories. And you talk about unskippable albums. Ray of Light is in that list too. Also, Ray of Light's a phenomenal record. It's in my top 10, 15 albums of all time. And for someone like me who listens to a lot of music and has listened to so many freaking albums through my lifetime in my 44 years on this earth, for her to get that kind of love is saying something. But I've been going through a little bit of a Madonna kick as late too. Also, she's touring still. She had a massive show she did where she drew over 1 million people to watch her show, not just from where she was performing, but also outside where she's performing to in Brazil. It's funny how Madonna has continued to stay relevant even in 2024, as polarizing she is, even politically speaking. She still managed to stay. And you watch her career, actually, I guess I'll bog down like other artists like Janet, for example, females, for example. Talk about Janet Jackson, talk about Mariah Carey, talk about Whitney Houston, all these. And I feel like Madonna sometimes gets underrated. And then you look at her. I always look at Madonna as like a little bit underrated, and then you look at her sales. She's still the biggest selling female artist of all time. So, yeah, we all underrate her, but yet she's still selling product, 40 plus years later in the industry. So, I'm actually thinking about doing a episode in the show at some point, maybe this summer. I'll do it if I have time. But I want to find somebody else to do with me. If not, I'll do it my own. But I want to do my own top 10 Madonna songs, ever, on the show. My favorite top 10 favorite Madonna songs ever. But yeah, it's amazing how she stayed relevant. And I enjoy music. I really do. I mean, I know she's president of some, and she's obviously a for women's rights and for someone that was bold to do things she did in the era she did it. You gotta give her props. You really do. Anyway, announcement time here. A little wrestling talk. This morning WWE announced that SummerSlam will officially be a 2-night event in 2026, in 2 years, August 1st and 2nd, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at US Bank Stadium. We have actually discussed this on various podcasts in the past. I know I have, about the possibility of what if SummerSlam was like WrestleMania. You've seen now the last couple of years since 2021, WrestleMania has become a 2-night event. Actually, it started in 2020, but that was the pandemic year. They had to do that for obvious reasons. But they kept that and went 2 nights going forward. SummerSlam will be a 2-night event starting in 2026. Whether or not it will be a 2-night event going forward, I figured they're gonna base that on how this one does in 2026. But this is a topic I think I've been just talking about with other wrestling podcasters in the last year or so about what if SummerSlam would go 2 nights, and I've always pushed back on that because I've always felt that WrestleMania is special because the name itself brings in the casuals. SummerSlam is still a big name. I wouldn't put SummerSlam on a level of WrestleMania in terms of cachet, name wise, but WWE may seem to think so, and they're going to bank on this and seeing this will work. And I'll tell you what, I think it will work because WWE finds ways to make money and finds ways to make themselves relevant. You know, if you're done WWE now at this point, at all these years of watching this stuff, do it your own peril. I am curious if they can make this a 2-night thing going forward, and withstand this and sustain this going forward. Someone was mentioning to me earlier that what if Survivor Series or Royal Rumble could go 2 nights? Survivor Series, no. I doubt Survivor Series is going to do it. Number one, the time of year Survivor Series happens. Number one is a kind of what they call the dead period of wrestling. You know, especially with their storylines. I could see a scenario. I don't think it will happen though, but I could see a scenario where Royal Rumble could be a 2-night event. And the reason I'm saying that is because Royal Rumble, you can literally split the 2 nights and have the women's Rumble one night and the men's Rumble another night. So that right there makes that work. But I doubt they would go that route because I think that's a bit overkill. It's a little too close to WrestleMania too, especially. And I don't think they want to risk having a 2-night event for Royal Rumble and then people get burned out and won't be able to afford WrestleMania tickets. So I don't know. I doubt we'll see a Rumble Survivor Series anytime soon anyway. But SummerSlam, I could see working. Number one, it's summertime, so it's actually attractive to go somewhere in the summer, like a festival. Same way we go to concerts, and the same way we go to concerts also. You know, for example, during the summer, it's another festival type thing. So it's no different, really. It's just wrestling. So we'll see how it works out. We'll be in 2 years though. It'll be 2 years from now. Let's see what else on the list before I get out of here. Personal thing here, real quick, before we get out of here. I've been without a working dryer in my house for the last week. I'm hoping today they bring a new one. My kid actually broke my dryer last week because he went inside. He was playing with his brother, and he went inside the dryer and they'll play hide and seek, I guess, and he went to the dryer, and I guess the belt broke off when he went inside there. So I've been washing my clothes at my sister's house like last week. Went to visit her for my nephew's graduating party, and then I may have to go to my mom's today to do my laundry if I can't get a working dryer. Obviously, I can wash the clothes still, but drying on the banister is a little bit annoying. And the problem is too with our schedules here at home is that we have so much going on in the house, and our schedule is so topsy-turvy between work and stuff and the kids, and they have to go. They go out a lot with the kids too, especially. So we're not always home to get the stuff done. So we got to find ways to. Hopefully today we get my dryer fixed, or a new dryer. Apparently we're getting today. Yeah. Look, first world problems. Yes, I get it, but it's annoying as shit. It really is. It's really annoying. So, but hopefully we get that thing up today. Hopefully. All right. One last thing to get out of here. And this is a more of a programming note. I am hoping this summer that I finally get some time to relaunch the Basketball Retrospective podcast that I started last year. Only got one episode in, and then just never finished it. You guys know my schedule here with the podcast. I'm always doing shows that on this feed with the rest of Retro Podcast now, especially I've been busy with that once a week. But I'm hoping probably in mid-June, because I already have episodes laid out that I want to do. And look, it definitely won't be the volume I do the wrestling retro pod. Sure, won't be the volume I do this show with. But I would like to at least through the summer get a 2 or 3 months out of that show. And if I could, I'd be happy. Weekly show talking about old school basketball. The problem is that for me to do that, it would require me doing probably less shows in this feed through the summer. And possibly, the wrestling's retro show I can probably still do no matter what. At its almost pace, but I may have to slow the pace down this show. See, the problem with this show is that this is not a weekly show anymore. We do shows a week, but we do at least 2 episodes a week. At least 2 episodes a week, whether it's a solo episode like this one or a guest. And I have people come on. Look, and I'm blessed for this. I'm not complaining at all because I'm blessed to have this. 13 years later doing this podcast, having things to talk about still on my end, having phenomenal guests that I have, whether it's regular guests I have on the show, whether it's regular monthly or bi-monthly or seasonal shows I do, whether it's Student of the Game Report during football season, whether it's Falcon Content with Big Jim and Kyle, whether it's anything I do, each of Regenerate, we do a betting show during the football season. It's so cool that I have so many ways to do content on this show, fresh content, and not just sports, but also, pop culture or pro wrestling and all this stuff. But there are other projects I want to get to also as well too. And I also have a limited schedule because at the same time, I'm still a dad. I'm still a husband. I still have priorities here at home that I got to take care of. So because of that, I have to be a little more decisive and a lot more, smart with how I use my schedule. So I'm going to hopefully relaunch the Basketball Retro podcast this summer. Like I said, I think it'll be a summer thing mostly, probably for June and probably July, and then that's it. And then we'll see how that goes rest of the year. Because obviously, you guys know during football season, I'm busy as hell. This show especially ramps up tremendously during football season. So, and I got a lot of things I want to focus on the outside. So we'll see how that sustains. But that's the goal. The goal is to relaunch that show hopefully next month, maybe sooner. We'll see. And hopefully I can get some episodes in the can for you guys. And of course, that'll be on a separate feed as well. But we'll announce that when that time comes. But I already have our episodes mapped out for at least for the summer to do if we decide to go that route. But that's it for me. Another close to an hour episode here. I love it. Again, I am on Twitter/X at EJ Christian 7. Of course, check me out on YouTube at youtube.com/@Earnest Christian. Check out all the clips of the shows. I do this one, the Rest of the Retro podcast, and eventually the Best Retro podcast down the road. Other than that, we'll talk soon. I don't know any other shows I have planned for the week. If we do, you'll see it in the feed. If not, too bad. So love you guys. Take care, and we'll talk soon. Later.
Thank you.